Good evening, and thank you so much for joining Raleigh Little Theatre and 7 Stories for In Hindsight 2020. I'm Heather Strickland, the Executive Director at Raleigh Little Theatre. It has been an extraordinarily hard year. Here at Raleigh Little Theatre, we are not producing theater the way that we are used to. We are not offering classes the way that we are used to. And one of the things that we miss the most is we cannot connect with our community in the way that we are used to connecting with all of you. So tonight is all about connecting with our community, raising up the stories of our community, and understanding what the heck happened in 2020. If you would like to tell your story about 2020, please post it on the social media of your choice and tag In Hindsight 2020. We'll be sharing those stories throughout the rest of February. If you would like to donate to Raleigh Little Theatre, please visit our website at raleighllittletheatre.org. You can also learn more about all the shows that we have coming up. We are so excited to present all of the storytellers that we have tonight and tomorrow night, and I am so excited to introduce my friend and the creator of 7 Stories, Justin. Thank you.
Thanks. Hi. Welcome to 7 Stories. 7 Stories is a live storytelling event that ran for 5 years in downtown Raleigh in a music venue, in a bar with a small audience. We're here tonight in this beautiful theater thanks to Heather and the artistic director, Patrick Torres. And we're here to share stories about 2020. What 7 Stories does is we take a theme and then we have 7 people tell a story about that theme so we can look at it from different perspectives. 2020 was an amazing year. And I use that word amazing not in the typical sense. It was very much a maze for me. I just felt like I was trying to get through this thing that was so complicated and convoluted. And I felt like sometimes I walked down a path that I thought would lead out of it only to find out it was a dead end, and I had to just sort of retrace my steps to back where I got lost. And that just felt like it just lasted. And I lost track of people, and I didn't know if they had gotten through the maze or not. And so this idea of coming together in Hindsight 2020 was to look back at this amazing year from different perspectives, different people with different voices, and think about what that year meant to them and share that with you here today. So this is a little different for us because usually we're in front of a big, live, raucous audience, and here we have a small audience of storytellers. And if I could get those storytellers just to give us a round of applause, just for what we have. Thank you. So that's our live audience, and then there's you who are watching through the virtual thing, and that's so appropriate for 2020 where we take meetings virtually and we go to school virtually and all those things. Please interact with these storytellers. If you like something, hit the like button or leave a comment, a heart emoji, whatever, however you interact with social media, interact with these storytellers so when they go back and watch these, that they'll see your reactions. And each storyteller has given us a charity or nonprofit. If you would like or so moved to donate on their behalf to their charity, please do. On my behalf, if you would like to donate to Raleigh Little Theatre, it's a theater that means so much to me in terms of my children have performed here, I have performed here, and they've been such great partners in this endeavor. So please interact with them, donate to their charities, and enjoy the stories tonight. Our first storyteller, when she's not on 7 Stories stage, which she has graced before, she told a beautiful story of her marriage to her partner, Lou. She is representing the state of North Carolina in our General Assembly. She would ask that you donate to the Women's Center of Raleigh. Please welcome my friend, Allison Dahle.
So a look back at 2020, or as I prefer to call it, the nightmare of isolation and video chats. One positive is that COVID got me out of interim committee on building codes. However, looking back, I would rather have learned more about building codes than losing lives. As a legislator, our goal should be working together to make our city, state, and nation stronger, prosperous, and provide equity for all people and citizens. Black Lives Matter and the peaceful protests that took place and were often met with brutality shone a light on the lack of equity in our nation. The lack of equity has been an issue as long as history books have been written. One person wants superiority over another person. History shows us over and over and over again. And we just can't seem to realize that all people are equal. They have value and should be cherished, whether we agree with them or not. This was an extremely hard time to be in government. And as I listened to some leaders, I was sad at how unequal our nation is and how unwilling some are to even recognize the inequity in our nation. These are just thoughts that I've trailed together. There's not a lot of segues in them, so. Also, as a legislator, I represent all the people, not just the ones that I agree with. This means I have to build relationships with people I may not have anything in common with. I might not even like them. COVID forced those of us in government to pull together and work together to have open, transparent dialogue about helping North Carolina get through this pandemic. We opened last year's session, and quickly all the bills that would have been heard were put on the back burner, and people's health and livelihoods were brought forward. I spent hours on Zoom and other video platforms to find common ground where we could do what was within our power to make people's lives easier. One of the groups that I was a part of during COVID was I served on a committee looking at voting laws and how to set up safe and legal processes for people to vote during COVID. I believe that everyone who wants to vote, is legally registered to vote, should vote. Voting is a right, and I believe a responsibility to ensure that our voice and our voices of others are heard, and the voices of others are heard. When it became very clear that voting in person could be a problem, we started working with the Board of Elections to make sure that voting by mail was safe, accessible, and legal. You would not believe all the laws that govern voting. We worked together to have only one witness on your mail-in ballot, to make sure that the Board of Elections knew who your witness was. In times past, someone could just scribble something and that would do. We were successful with this voting bill, and it passed in the House almost unanimously. Was this bill everything we needed? No. Was it everything I wanted? No. But it was great. It was a great compromise for the people of North Carolina. One of the striking differences between COVID as opposed to a normal time in desire is the desire to compromise. In government, I felt as though we had to really decide what was important to our constituents and ourselves and what we could leave on the table. As you may know, leaving things on the table is very hard and often frowned upon by politicians. But we as Democrats and Republicans had to be on the same team, no opposing teams, and that changed the dynamic. I saw those of us who wanted to compromise coming to the table to work together, and those less interested in compromise stayed in the background, and turf wars were not fought near as often as usual. COVID has been frustrating, interesting, sad, and it is not over. We still have money to allocate for COVID relief, and we still have lots of work to do to bring equity to all people. I am hopeful as we enter the next phase, that is vaccines and moving around our community with masks still in place, We must rise above and continue to find commonalities which may be just as simple as, I like your navy blue shoes. Please start the hard conversations and continue them. We must communicate in order to make our city, state, and nation a gentler and kinder place. Please join me in the hard conversation of life. I would love it if you not only join me in the hard conversation, but also by donating to the Women's Center of Wake County. You can find the link in the chat. I want to thank you, and I want you to think hard about how we can have more conversations that may not be comfortable, but we have to have them. We have to have them in order to respect others, make sure people wear masks, make sure people are safe, and protect those that are most vulnerable. One thing that overrides this past year is that my mother has not left her community. She lives in a senior retirement community. She has not left that community other than to go to the doctor's office. And with these in our hands, we can make a change in somebody's life. So thank you again for allowing me to tell you my story and allowing me to show you a point of view of a legislator. All right, thanks. Good night.
Thank you, Representative Dahle. Our next storyteller comes from a group of people that I think have been hit very hard by the pandemic, and that's students. Students, sometime in spring of 2020, went home from school and they never returned. Students missed prom, they missed their graduations, and then the fall came around after a summer spent indoors, and they went back to school, some of which they had never stepped foot in. They had classes with teachers they had never met and friends they'd never seen in person. It was an incredibly difficult time, and as a parent of children in school, I saw that firsthand. Our next storyteller is a freshman at Enloe High School, a school that he's never stepped foot in. When he's not a freshman at Enloe, he's performed here at Raleigh Little Theatre in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. He's performed with Arts Together and a number of plays at his middle school, Cathedral School in downtown Raleigh. He also plays video games, tries to go viral on TikTok, and happens also to be my son. Very honored to bring to the stage Seamus Scranton.
The first book I read in high school was The Lord of the Flies. And for anyone who may not know, The Lord of the Flies is about a group of British schoolboys who crash land on an abandoned island. And I'm not British, and I definitely haven't crashed on an abandoned island. But starting high school in a time like this felt like I could relate to the boys. I went to the same very small school from kindergarten to 8th grade. I knew everyone in the whole school, and my mom was a teacher, so the faculty knew me too. But when I was choosing what high school to go to, I not only chose a public school, but one of the biggest schools in the state. And like a lot of other kids, I had this expectation about what high school was going to be like. Thought I was going to be walking the halls, meeting new people. But no, it didn't work like that. Life never is how it is on paper. I'm sure that in The Lord of the Flies, the boys had read how to build a fort, how to cook meat, how to start a fire. But the real thing was very different. And like these boys, I'm thrown into an environment where I don't know how to meet new people, don't know how to make friends, a place where I don't have any motivation. And my teachers assigned us a project instead of a test on The Lord of the Flies. And this project was very unique. We were going to be picking characters from The Lord of the Flies and having a whole campaign, debate, and eventually voting on the next president of the island. And we started off by meeting our groups, and I could immediately tell who was who. Who was the leader, the quiet one, the one who's going to get us off track. But we clicked very fast, actually. We started off by introducing ourselves and who we wanted to be, such as the candidate, the VP candidate, the campaign spokesperson. And during this project, we all really bonded, and we really enjoyed ourselves. And we ended up with Maurice as our candidate. And if you don't remember who Maurice is, don't worry. Neither did we. And we had just read the book. And when we really delve into who Maurice was, we realized he hadn't done anything. He hadn't done anything. And we then realized he hadn't done anything. We could use that to our advantage against anyone who has done something wrong. And after about a week, these were probably my best friends in the whole school. We took time after class in our own meetings trying to finish the work that we didn't get done. And we made quality mailers and we made quality yard signs, but we weren't counting on our voters to care much about those. Our voters were high school freshmen, and they cared about human contact. And I started to realize how much better we worked as friends. We started to think more alike, and we had less conflicting ideas. And we eventually got to the point where we got to start to see some of our classmates' work. And we were meant to judge them. And judge them we did. It was incredibly harsh. And we died laughing the entire way. And now the only thing I'm looking forward to is fourth period. Because it really did feel nice having someone to talk to kind of face-to-face every day. And as we got into the later parts of the project, it came to my part, debating. And without any experience prior, I knew I had to be memorable, make points to make me look good, but be memorable. And we actually ended up having to do the debate twice. And the first time I smoked everyone so bad. So the second time I was up for more of a challenge. My teammate warmed me up, and I felt good. I got up there and I screamed, showed emotion, found weaknesses in my opponents I didn't even know. And then, even if we didn't win, because I didn't have a stellar speech right before the voting, I had an amazing time and made some great friends. But we won. And winning is great, and making friends is better. But winning with your friends is the best. And our campaign slogan was, "Change is on the horizon." And it's a great slogan to win the election, but there's so much more you can learn from that. Change is on the horizon, and it always will be. But you can't sit there and look at the horizon all day. You have to go out and live your life. And there's going to be days when it's hard. But as long as we work together, we can get through those. The boys on the island didn't get anywhere when they weren't working together. And I had this expectation about what high school was going to be like, and it didn't work out like that. But that doesn't mean I can't make friends, have good relationships with my teachers, and get good grades. We see this pandemic as a wall, as a beast, per se. And like the boys on the island said, maybe there is a beast. Maybe it's only us. The Lord of the Flies was the first book I read in high school. I'm glad it's not the last.
Thank you, Seamus. Seamus would ask that if you would like to donate, please do to the Frank and Calla Bell Foundation, a foundation which raises money to send kids to summer camp in Western North Carolina. Our next storyteller is a performer and an actor, but she's also someone that struggles with mental health. And that is a huge issue of 2020, which gets oftentimes unspoken about. It's left to sort of just sit in an empty room by itself. And I'm so thrilled that she's willing to come here and talk about an issue that's very near and dear to my heart. She would ask that if you would like to donate, please do so to the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance. Please welcome to the stage Qualia Holder-Cozart. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. Qualia Holder-Cozart.
Don't worry. In 2020, I got quarantined at military training. As if it wasn't hard enough being away from home. What was supposed to be 6 months turned into 9. At the time, I was on top of the world. I was head of the game, platoon guide, class president, and student first sergeant. I mean, these were feats that begged to be accomplished by any soldier in training at the time. To be able to stand in front of an entire company of soldiers in training and lead them was magnificent. But 2 weeks felt like an eternity. And after a while, I didn't really know where my 4 walls began or where they ended. And I began to feel a depression, the remnants of a depression that I had forgotten about, that I hadn't felt in a while. And who knew that it had just been simmering at the pit of my psyche, waiting to overtake me? I'm throwing a lot on y'all real fast, real quick. So let me back up real quick. In order for me to properly go through this timeline of events, I need to go back a few years. Picture this. 2015, I am stepping off of the elevator in my college and I pass out, hit the floor. I was on my way to a big test and I was so anxious and stressed out about this test that I didn't even get the opportunity to take it. Instead, I got to wake up strapped inside of an ambulance. Out of that began my toxic relationship with therapy. I had commitment issues. I was like a deadbeat baby daddy, and my child was my mental state. Therapy, the loving mother, just begging me to stay. But as I found myself struggling with emotional vulnerability, so did my relationships. I found myself in romantic situations that threatened my self-worth and diminished me to believing that I was only worth what I could give or what could be taken from me. I was only any good if I could be controlled. And I began to believe it. So in 2019, I drove into oncoming traffic. I remember first pulling off to the side of the road. I was sad. I was angry. It was only fucking Tuesday and I hated myself. I screamed. I threw up. I screamed again. And before I knew it, I was U-turning myself into what I hoped to be the end. But lucky for me, it wasn't. Soon after that, I found myself in a recovery center, and it was the beginning of accepting that I needed help. But also the beginning of an atrocious whirlwind. I moved around a lot. I kept to myself even more. And my boyfriend at the time was really struggling to understand what I was going through. And I didn't blame him. But it meant that he could only love me as much as he was willing to accept my experience as a part of his story too. And let's just say that he didn't love my chapters. So 2 houses and a tough breakup later, I was getting asked to move out of my 3rd living situation in a year. And if you guys know any basic math, that's a fucking lot. I couldn't pay rent. Go figure. I couldn't keep a job. I withdrew from not 1, but 2 schools. And I had no degree. I couldn't keep a good relationship. And responsibilities. It was enough that I was able to get up in the morning, brush my teeth, take a shower. The desire to live was waning away. The feeling of failure proceeded to overwhelm me. Where was I going? What was I doing? I felt as if I tried everything. What was left for me? Next thing I knew, I was standing in my driveway on the phone with a recruiter for the North Carolina Army National Guard. I never imagined going into the military, let's be honest. I mean, I'm a creative, a thespian, a musician, a colorful human being. What could the military possibly offer me? In fact, what could I possibly offer the military as a creative with a complex of self-destruction? I don't know. At least I didn't know at the time. But what I can say is that was the most inspiring conversation I'd ever had with a person in my entire life. I mean, I set this recruiter on fire. He was so just pumped by me. And I could genuinely tell that it wasn't because he needed a number out of me. I wasn't just another face to add to the faceless ranks. I was important. He saw something in me. And he told me that I was meant to be great. How the hell do you say no to that, right? So I went forward. Basic combat training was hard. It was hard as hell, if not the reincarnation of hell itself. And AIT was only but a hop, skip, and a jump from being just as bad. I got held back. I got injured. I watched my battle buddies graduate without me. And then COVID hit. Smack dab in the middle of the most trying moment in my entire life. And I couldn't go home. Not only that, when I finally got out and I moved on to the next stage and I was doing well, I was top of my class, I was head of the game, I was everything that I had worked so hard to be, I was shunned, locked away for 14 days by myself to see nobody, to experience nothing but the four walls inside of my room. Can you imagine what it feels like to work so hard to get to the point where you feel better, to get to the point where you feel worth it, to start to see what you can be and to have it all stripped away from you? I had spent so long digging myself out of the deepest hole I'd ever been in my entire life just to be thrown right back in dirt laid on top of my head. But here I am. I finished. I made it. And I didn't let it keep me down. It was hard. It was very hard. But I'm able to stand here and say that I persevered through it all. In July of 2020, Private First Class Holder-Cozart came home. But so did her memories. I was back in the place where it all began. The depression, the anxiety, and I found myself again being subdued by the diminishing self-worth. My partner advised that I go to therapy. I get back into doing something that helped me figure out what was what, to figure out who I am. Not soon after that, I was diagnosed with bipolar depression. Which sounds bad, but honestly, it was a fucking relief. At the very least, I could put a name to this ominous face that I'd been experiencing for years. Now I'm going to therapy every week. I no longer have commitment issues. I have a full-time job with the North Carolina Army National Guard. I am in the process of working towards becoming an officer. And this smile on my face, it's real. I no longer have to pretend to portray happiness because it is what is truly inside of me. I feel amazing. The biggest thing that I take with me from 2020, the number one message I actually learned from a workout video recently. Jess Sims of Peloton, you're welcome, says, I can do hard things. Like, say that with me. I can do hard things. You would not believe how much power there is in that. You can do hard things. So let nothing destroy you. My name is Qualia Holder-Cozart, and it has been an absolute honor to speak before you today. The clarity of your 2020 vision doesn't have to just be hindsight. Carry the lessons with you. Let them water you, for you are a glorious seed, and you can do hard things. Thank you.
Thank you, Qualia. Our next storyteller is a very good friend of mine. She has appeared on the stage many times with 7 Stories, and when she's not telling stories, she produces a wonderful comedy show, an all-women's comedy show known as Eyes Up Here. This has been a particularly strange 2020 for her, as you will soon see that she had something very special going on throughout the entire year, but going on almost entirely alone. Please welcome to the stage my friend Erin Terry.
I put lipstick on, y'all. It was risky, but I hope it's worth it. Okay, let me get these up there. Okay, hold on. Let me hang this up. Okay. Please stop telling this joke. It's not good. When you see a pregnant woman in 2021, you don't need to say, we all know what you were doing during quarantine. It's old, okay? It's not as funny as you think it is. And also, it was a one-time thing, okay? So, no. I did this on purpose. This was planned, except for the pandemic part, as you might have guessed. I wouldn't recommend it, but I wouldn't change it either. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly about being pregnant during 2020 and into 2021. For the first 2 months, I had terrible nausea, just terrible, like lay down, knock you out, throw up everywhere. But I was always at home, so I didn't have to like puke at the grocery store or puke in my car or puke at a friend's house or puke in a restaurant or puke at a bar. I was home. The toilet was right there, always right there. And thanks to COVID, anybody who would dare touch a stranger's belly uninvited has to stand 6 feet away from me. So nope, problem solved. Although I will say, I at least wanted to slap like one stranger's hand, just one. I just wanted to be like, don't touch me. And I have not yet got to do that. As quarantine settled in and more people were home and everybody Marie Kondo'd their house, I got so many calls and text messages from my mama friends who were like, please come get this shit from my house. You can have it. Just get it out of here. And I raked it in. Like, truly, I have 2 baby bathtubs after paring it down from 4 baby bathtubs. I got so much stuff for free, I didn't even really need to have a baby shower, which is great. And it's nice to have hand-me-downs from friends. Loved garments and blankets, and hell, I didn't barely have to buy anything, which is great. I highly recommend that part. I'm still open for more baby gifts. And during the pandemic, any inclination I would normally have to overshare, maybe even show my stomach on a stage at a stand-up open mic, I have had to reel it in because that's not going to be on my Instagram story or the internet forever. So my husband probably really appreciates that I have not overshared our whole pregnancy during the pandemic. And it's helped me walk back maybe what might or might not be appropriate in the public square. So you're welcome, world. And I'll say one last great thing about being pregnant during 2020 is that people wanted something to be happy about. They were like, a baby, we can be excited about a baby. I'm so excited you're having a baby. Yay, baby. Oh, go team baby. And I love that because I'm not sure in a normal year anyone would have noticed that I was slowly gaining weight or throwing up anywhere. That's not a great thing to not notice. But, in general, we just got so much love and so much support and so many people reaching out to say, we're so glad for you. Can't wait for this, something to focus on in the future. But there have been bad sides about being pregnant in 2020, things that I would not recommend. Like for a first-time mom during a worldwide airborne pandemic, to have to weigh out, are these pregnancy symptoms or is this COVID? Let's just review which ones overlap. Fatigue, runny nose, body aches, diarrhea, vomiting. These are all things I answer yes to. And so in the middle of the night when my anxiety was at all-time high, I'm like, it could be anything. Luckily, it was mostly just the baby. I've been home since March of last year until, tonight I took a risk. I'm wearing gloves. I will not be talking to any of you. No offense. So there's bad things like if I really am glowing, nobody has gotten to tell me that except for my husband, and he's required, so it doesn't count. There's no middle of the night wild food cravings that you can have because everything's closed. And also it's not safe to send your husband to the grocery store at midnight because it's probably not even open. Being pregnant during a pandemic means that you're immunocompromised where you otherwise would be just a normal 36-year-old woman. Now you actually are immunocompromised because of the baby. And so now you're thinking for two about an airborne illness and where you could get it. I didn't get to go to the protests or the peaceful protests that I wanted to really assert my belief that Black lives do matter and that I would like to be a visible person in the public square who says that because I couldn't risk tear gas or COVID. And so all of my online activism just had to be something that I did for myself until I told y'all about it now. But that's because I really think y'all need to know that in case you didn't do anything in 2020. I didn't get to vote in person, like in the most important election we've had probably in my whole lifetime. And I couldn't risk mailing it. And so I took a risk to hand in my mail-in ballot in person that day so that I could secure the future that I am leaning heavily into because I have to believe that there's something better coming. Otherwise, I would not have been pregnant in 2020 if I was not optimistic. I didn't get to travel to see loved ones. I took my own maternity photos. I do not recommend. It's very weird to do that for yourself. No try-on rooms are open in stores, so I have had to try on everything at home when my body is changing every day. Also, not a great way to try on maternity clothes at home. I took a distanced baby moon with my husband to the mountains, where instead of being on our couch watching Netflix, we were on a couch in the mountains watching Netflix, and where we didn't order from Raleigh restaurants for takeout food, we ordered from mountain restaurants for takeout food. So really thrilling, lots of great memories made in that little cabin. And I'll tell you the ugly, and I'm going to try to hold it in, but it has not been easy. This is the biggest news I've ever had in my life, and I am a talker. I'm also a crier. I'm also easily excited, and I've always wanted to be a mom. And I had to tell everybody in a text message or on the phone. There was like 3 people I told in person, and they were in passing, and they were probably like rolling their eyes like, woo, a baby? I'm like, yeah, oh my God, I'm pregnant. It's not really the same to not be hugged by your family when you tell them that you're pregnant. And that it's so exciting, but you're crying on FaceTime. It's not the same. I was alone at every appointment at the doctor because husbands weren't or partners were not invited. There were 2 appointments that he was allowed to be there for, and as soon as the ultrasounds were over, he had to leave. It's just a different environment, and I understand it. But when they can't find the heartbeat at your, 13 week or whatever it was, and you're looking around, there's no one there. It's just, okay, they're going to find it. They're going to find it. Then they find it. We're looking at a future where no family can visit while we're still at the hospital. No visitors. That's just the rule. They can come and look at you through a window like you're Evita. Like Simba with the baby at the window, which I don't plan to do. Gosh, I took an online birth class. I took an online breastfeeding class. I took an online newborn class. I took a virtual tour of the hospital. I would at least think one of those, probably this one, needed to be hands-on, but none of it. None of it was hands-on. Just all virtual. For the first time in my life, I'm going to have a child, and it will be a first for everybody. Whew. Gosh. I have to wear a mask during childbirth. I'm due 14 days from today, and the idea of breathing for my life with a mask on makes me an anti-masker in that moment. I don't understand. I don't really know how to reconcile those two thoughts, but God, I'm so mad I have to wear a mask, and I'm going to go from Erin in that moment to Karen in that moment, and I'm just sorry to those nurses already. Gosh, we had a virtual baby shower. 30 of my closest friends from across the nation Zoomed with me instead of hugging me, instead of passing me a caring thought where they are allowed to touch my belly. Nobody. Just my husband. And God bless him. He's the sweetest, kindest, most supportive partner I could ask for. But man, I would love to have had a hug this past year from somebody who wasn't him. Anyway, I know I'm going a little long. I did just want to say that it's been heavy. It's been isolating. It's been just a ball of emotion, a peripheral vision always clouded by, I'm pregnant right now, pandemic right now, pandemic. Oh my God, like, what are we doing? How do we get here? But I've had this overwhelming thankfulness just to this baby. And so I want to end with a note to the baby. Dear baby, this is you. You were the sparkly silver lining on an otherwise very gray year. Not to say that 2020 was irredeemable in any way because you got here, but I'm so glad you did. You were an unspoken riptide of joy for your father and I in 2020. You're due in 14 days. I can't wait to meet you. I have a feeling that you will continue to buoy me in a way that I can't express, and that we will turn from a pod of 2 to a pod of 3, and we'll get through it in 2021 in much the same way that we got through 2020, which is with a little humor, good luck, and just one day at a time. Thank you.
Erin would ask that you donate to Double Shift Podcast, which is a podcast that supports working mothers. Thank you so much, Erin, for your story. One of the things about 2020 that's been challenging for anyone that's a performer is that performance spaces and performances in general have sort of evaporated, and folks had to learn how to perform their arts, or performance spaces had to figure out how to have shows again, and that has been particularly true for our next storyteller. This storyteller has been a partner in 7 Stories in many ways. They have been a storyteller. We produced a wonderful show about drag art called What a Drag at our old venue, King's in downtown Raleigh. And he's also a very good friend. If you'd like to donate, please do to the LGBT Center here in Raleigh, and welcome my friend to tell his story, Joshua Joyner.
Hello, thank you, Justin. Okay, she's cute. All right. Hi, my name is Joshua. I'm 29 years old, born and raised right here in Raleigh, North Carolina. I apologize for using my phone. Number 1, I'm a millennial. Number 2, I lose track of what I'm saying easily. And number 3, it's been a while since I've been in front of an audience of 5 people. It happens more than you think. I started off 2020 as I did most of my New Year's in a packed bar with a bunch of strangers, drinking and having a good time. At the time, COVID was only a whisper, and the severity of it wasn't that tangible. The nightlife was and is a huge part of my life. I've been doing drag for 10 years. Thank you. I've been on Housecast at Legends Nightclub for about 4 years. I absolutely love performing and meeting people from all walks of life, and very fortunate to be a part of queer history working at this bar. 2 years ago, I lost the love of my life, my biggest cheerleader, my hero, my mom. This completely shifted my world mentally, spiritually, and financially. Drag changed from being fun and frivolous into a way to make ends meet. For a while, I had prayed for a break just to figure out who I was as a person, to heal, and to just be still. Then came March. Be careful what you pray for. Once COVID was literally at our front doors and our state was on lockdown, first came panic, then came remorse, then came unemployment, thank God, then came the beard. I had never really had enough downtime to grow facial hair, and it was kind of cute. I was into it. I bought a ton of plants, drank a bunch of wine, and had really deep, meaningful conversations with my 2 dogs. Summertime came, and she really came with the shits. Being brought up in the South, being black and queer, I was no stranger to bigotry. Like getting in an elevator next to a white woman as she clutches her purse, all the while in the back of my head, I'm thinking, girl, my bag is cuter than yours, calm down. Passed down from generations, we've been conditioned on how to act around white people, how to make ourselves smaller, more palatable. Black folks have been tired, and the world is just catching up with us. Watching the news, watching and oftentimes participating in stupid Facebook arguments, protesting my own city, it made me look inward. Like, what am I doing? Who am I doing this for? And how can I make a change? I've been blessed with this platform, and I have to use it to the best of my ability. I took all those emotions and put them into my art. Virtual drag was that for me. It took away the money grab and just became me and the music. It was performing that made me fall in love with drag and that found that passion again. It was soul food for me and an escape for others. I'm back and blacker than ever. Although we are not out of the woods yet, I have a feeling that the future is very bright. I pray for all the lives we have lost in this horrible pandemic. I pray for all of our nurses, doctors, and frontline workers. And I pray for you. 2020 was a beast. 2021 ain't too cute either. But I have faith that it will get better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joshua. Our next storyteller has been a regular on 7 Stories from our very, very first season. She is a very dear friend of mine, an amazing storyteller who has had a very, very difficult 2020. I am very, very excited to welcome to the stage tonight my friend, Suzy Hooker.
What a gut punch, huh? Looking back, it's really unbelievable that so much struggle and grief and despair was packed into a single calendar year. Do you guys remember murder hornets? Or when the government real casually confirmed the existence of UFOs? Beirut exploded, Alaska and our West Coast were razed by wildfires, and Trump was impeached for the first time. Breonna Taylor was murdered, George Floyd was murdered, RBG died, Alex Trebek died, Eddie Van Halen died, Chadwick Boseman died, and those legendary names were just all drops in the bucket of the 2 million lives that were claimed by the real star of 2020, which is COVID-19. I imagine that's mostly what this year will be remembered for, starting with the whispers from the East that escalated into a perfectly justifiable panic that gripped the entire globe as one country after another rolled into some version of a lockdown. Except good old USA, we soldiered on with our American exceptionalism, stockpiling toilet paper and haphazardly embracing masks, but that's not the story that I'm here to tell tonight. We all live that story together, not in the same boat, but certainly in the same flood. My 2020 started hard from the word go. January 1st found me in the midst of a nervous breakdown.
What my therapist tells me was activated PTSD, but if constant crying and vivid nightmares and suicidal ideation doesn't constitute a nervous breakdown, I hope to never meet one. In the middle of 2019, I'd entered into treatment for a binge eating disorder. It's probably not what you imagine, and I won't tell you anything that Google can't, but like most sufferers of an eating disorder, its roots were based in trauma. A few months after starting therapy, all the secrets that I'd managed to keep, even from myself, started spilling out of me. It was like a dam had burst inside, and I couldn't staunch the flow of feelings that I had shoved way down deep inside myself where the light doesn't shine. Food and drugs and alcohol and sex and busyness had served well to suppress my memories of childhood sexual abuse. And when those memories came up, so too did the horror of seeing a stranger murdered at age 11, and later echoes of all of the horrendous shit that I'd heard secondhand when I was working to transcribe police interrogations. I had seen the worst of humanity. I'd experienced it, and I was letting myself feel it for the first time. The beginning of 2020 was the hardest time of my life, but luckily, I have a great support network, and I made it through. 2 weeks before the end of 2019, I moved directly across the street from where I was living, and somehow in that 65 feet of distance, I managed to lose one box titled Important Documents. In that box, my entire identity on paper was stored. Passport, birth certificate, social security card, the title and registration of my car, tax info, student loan documents, my pet's medical records, all gone. I had effectively lost myself coming into 2020. And that mysterious loss felt very much in line with my internal landscape at the time. Who the hell was I if I wasn't the person keeping secrets and self-medicating? What was my place in the world if the timeline of my life had been blown apart by information that was new to my mind but not my body? I had no fucking idea, but I muddled ahead with my wife telling me that my only responsibility was to get myself to work and get home again each day. And so that's what I did for the first few months of 2020. I muddled through the quicksand of trauma, and I showed up to my job on a TV show called Love It or List It. That job, which I both loved and hated at equal turns, was decidedly not pandemic friendly. Most of our work days found 16 of us kind of jammed up on top of one another behind the scenes in a garage or a spare bedroom that hadn't made the renovation list. We spent 12-hour shifts in those spaces where social distancing was almost impossible. So midway through March, production wrapped, and we had no idea when we'd be returning. A couple of weeks spent playing video games and collecting unemployment, and I realized that I was experiencing something I'd always secretly dreamed of, which was a few months off with no obligations so that I could pursue my creative work. And I want to recognize my place of privilege, my point of privilege here. I'd made a decent wage on the TV show and had small savings. My unemployment was enough to cover my expenses, and I know that makes me one of the lucky ones. Food scarcity, eviction, illness, or death were not realities I was faced with, and I wish the entire country could claim the same, but that's still not the case today, and I certainly hope that changes soon. So I started going up to my studio at Anchor Light every day and painting like it was my job. Canvas after canvas, I put down my misery and rage, and with each new painting that I finished, my anxiety lessened a little bit more. My mind started healing, and with that, I began coming home to a body that I realized I have been disassociated from for nearly 4 decades. I started feeling physical sensations that I'd long ignored. And that's when I really realized the true extent of the grinding chronic pain I was having with the joint deformity in my left ankle. I was walking on the bottom of my tibia with my ankle rolled outward so far that my big toe couldn't even touch the floor anymore. It was agony. 12 years prior, I'd badly injured my ankle while I was hiking a volcano in Hawaii, and when I came home to North Carolina and saw a doctor for the persistent pain, he just said, lose some weight, it'll resolve itself. So Year after year, the pain worsened, my ankle rolled out further, and doctor after doctor echoed the same refrain. Just lose weight, it'll be fine. Now, I don't know if you all know this, but fat people get terrible health care due to the incredible fat bias in the medical community. There is not a single condition that afflicts exclusively fat people, not one. But weight loss is usually prescribed when a fat patient presents with anything, including my torn tendons and chipped ankle bone that left shards to kind of float around and chew up the inside of my joint. I'd let doctors convince me that the ankle problem was my fault, and I probably deserved to live with the pain because I was the stupid fat woman that had gotten herself into this place with her stupid fat body. But through therapy, those thoughts started changing when I began to realize that the pain and shame I'd carried my whole life, living in a body that was the scene of the crime, was not my pain or shame to hold on to any longer. And so I mustered up the courage, and I called another doctor, and I made another appointment, and I was immediately gripped with the anxiety of the thought of another rejection of care. So I scripted this little speech that I was going to deliver as soon as the doctor walked into the door the first day. And the day comes, he walks in, and I blurted out, "I'm in treatment for an eating disorder, and I know weight affects my recovery, but I just want you to treat me like you'd treat somebody in a smaller body." And he paused for just a second and said, "Okay, when do you want to get that bad ankle replaced? That looks really painful." And at that point, I couldn't hold back the tears of relief that a doctor was finally looking past my size and seeing a person with a problem that he could help. So the surgery was scheduled for September 29th. The surgery itself was brutal. They literally cut my fucking foot off and put it back on right. Now the skin stayed intact, but there's 8 incisions and something like 400 external stitches. It was crazy. I'll never forget the first night of the surgery because it was the day of the very first presidential debate between Biden and that human garbage bag. And I had the good fortune of watching it hooked up to a morphine drip. It was the first time in 3.5 years I could tolerate hearing that man's voice. So I spent one night in the hospital, and I was sent home the next day with a pain that defies description. I didn't understand what the doctor had meant when he said, "Stay ahead of the pain," but I very quickly realized what it meant to fully feel what a bone saw can do to a body. Those first few weeks passed in a blissful haze of narcotics, but after those weeks passed, I started realizing that not only was I socially isolated because of the Rona, but now I was also entirely immobilized. It's very easy to take for granted what one can do in an able body. You take peeing, for instance. In a person that identifies as female, it's a very simple act of sitting down and then standing back up again. But doing it with one leg and trying to protect a tender, mushy-boned foot was a Herculean feat. I made it through those months of non-weight bearing with a hearty thank you to my loving wife, Karen. And now I can take a few steps without my crutches. I might be cleared by my PT next week to ditch the crutch entirely and start walking around in my boot as I see fit. And thank you. In a month or so, I'll probably be back in regular shoes, and before I know it, I'll be back to dog walking and dancing in the kitchen. And Karen is very excited that I'll be able to be back on dish duty, which who could blame her after 5 months of this? Before the surgery, my life had shrunk to a very small circle of things that I could do without literally crying from pain. And each day, that circle is starting to expand a little bit wider. The beginning of 2020 saw me reclaim my heart and soul, and the end of 2020 saw me reclaim my body. It's been an incredible journey. I am losing my place is what I'm doing. Excuse me, just 1 second, y'all. This is so unprofessional, but I haven't performed in so long. Sorry. Okay. So, like I said, the beginning of 2020 saw me reclaim my heart and soul. The end of 2020 saw me reclaim my body. And I'm kind of inclined to lean into the cliche of getting my life back, but I'm not going back to where I came from. I was basically emotionally crippled, surviving with the help of an eating disorder, and really struggling to believe that I deserved a spot at any table. And that's just not me anymore. I'm still in the infancy of both of my recoveries, and I still have a hard time naming what emotion I'm experiencing at any given moment, but I'm soldiering on ahead. Looking back, 2020 was so scary and painful and filled with so much dread and despair, but oddly, the year gave me more than it took. Sure, I was full of righteous anger and plenty of anxiety. But now, walking into 2020 with a new foot and a new president, what I'm feeling is a hearty dose of hope and determination. 2020 was my worst, best year. I'm still unemployed. I still am trying to figure out what comes next now that Love It or List It has escaped to the sweet embrace of Canada. I still struggle with social isolation and grief at the ever-increasing death toll, and I miss hugging people so much. I miss hugging so fucking much I can hardly stand it. Live music, weekend getaways, my friend Emily's dinner parties. I ache for fellowship and visible smiles. But for now, I will have to make do with a shame-free existence and a brand new titanium ankle. Thank you for listening. Thanks, Justin, for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Suzy. If you'd like to, please donate to the Women's Center of Raleigh in Suzy's behalf. That's 6 stories. We have 1 story left, and I'm so excited to bring our next storyteller up on the stage. He has been with us from the very first show we ever did almost 6 years ago, and he has such a very interesting background for this story because in the public, he is one of the most renowned magicians in the world, but privately, in his real life, he works in clinical research. And so this has been a strange year as my friend Michael Casey has wrestled with his art, which is of deception and illusion, and then the harsh realities of this pandemic. Please welcome to tell a story to our stage and donate to North Carolina Food Not Bombs, my friend Michael Casey.
Sorry, I got to do the whole double mask thing, y'all. Science and shit. So yeah, I'm Michael Casey. Most people know me one of 2 ways. I'm a magician, and they know me like that, and they have no concept. They think that's my full-time job. Totally fine. I'm really into that. I love magic so much. And then other people know me as a clinical researcher. I'm an executive for a research firm that specializes in vaccines and all kind of ongoing clinical trials, and I've been doing that for over 20 some odd years now. So it was a really weird thing because like most people are like, magician, what do you mean? Not like I took a picture and it was magical, or I looked into your eyes and like magic, card tricks and throw knives at people and stunts, and not the researcher where I'm mixing shit up in the laboratory either. It's like I'm more of like a strategist and put things together kind of in a expounded kind of way. So I design with data, and I look at data, and I try to find epidemics, and I try to find patterns in data and things like that. So I have a very different kind of thing. But the weird part is people always like, why magic? And it was science really came first for me, and science got my curiosity. Science got me like really thinking about like how things work and asking the right questions, and really got me into magic. And when I started thinking about it as I was doing magic and research, you all familiar with the placebo effect, right? That's like proving magic isn't real. So my job of doing magic and deceiving people is split in half by the fact that I'm trying to prove that these drugs actually work and they're not fake, right? Because that's like legit. You want me on your side doing that, right? Like I'm going to be so critical of all that shit. So it was one of those things that the desire to learn really kind of begat the magic, and the magic and the research, they just kind of, they flow like two like intertwining birds, or whatever, those birds that fucking make shapes and shit, right? And then 2020 hit. I mean, I think we all hit that fucking point in this night. It was like 2020 hit you, and then like what was going on, you know? And I tried for a minute with magic. I really, truly did try. Like, I did virtual shows every Monday, and I was like, man, people in this pandemic, they need something to like hang on to. I need to hang on to my own self because I can't do it. This is probably the first time I've performed since last March, right? And was doing these virtual shows, and I had to put all this stuff on hold. I was going to go out on tour with on the Flog of Molly cruise, and Chris Stapleton was talking to me about opening his next big record release, and I was like moving in these really great ways, and then all of a sudden it just grinded down to this slow halt, and I was like, all right, I really believe in people. I believe we can get through this. I'll do these virtual shows. And then they started killing people in the streets. And I got really sad about it. And just stopped. I haven't done magic since that day. I wanted to be quiet, and I wanted to take it all in, you know, and I got lost. And it was heartbreaking for me to lose that, because I had spent 20 years of my life doing this thing, and now I lost faith in people, and I lost the will to entertain these people, because now I didn't know who was fucking who, you know? I didn't know who was good and who was bad anymore, and it hurt me to see people hurt, because I use magic to bring joy to people, you know? So, what was my fucking brilliant idea in this pandemic? I'm working all the time, you know, working on these vaccines, working on all this stuff. I'm gonna go back to what I do know. I know science, you know, and a lot of people don't know science, right? They don't know science. That's what I'm good at. I can read reports, and I go through, and then I started getting on fucking Facebook, because that's like where you're connecting with people now, Zoom meetings and Facebook, right? And I would read these reports, and I would translate them, and people would be like, I don't know, this is scary, this thing. And I'm like, well, that's kind of not real. Like, don't take that. And like, you know, well, I heard about this drug, and I'm like, that data doesn't look really that good, because that's what I used to do. I used to do design drugs, so I would really read these reports, and I could tell you manufactured marketing bullshit from like actual proven stuff. So I would take to Facebook, and I would go in there, and I would do it for me, because I needed something. I needed to give something back, you know? And if it was just one post and somebody got something from it, it's like, oh, cool, like that calmed my nerves, or that made me nervous. That was helping me. I was back to like engaging with people, right? But you all know what the fuck happens next. The fuck do you know, you fucking magician? Your degree's like 20 years old. Okay, Margie, let's take a step back for a second, because one of us is a barista, and one of us is an executive that has traveled all around the world meeting with pharmaceutical executives and dining their trials. I do know what I'm talking about. But in the game of the internet, all's fair, right? People can say what they want. And then Chad comes on. Well, you know, automobile accidents kill like 40,000 people a year. In Chad's defense, not only is math not his strong suit, but we were like a couple months in the COVID, so there's like only like 100,000 people dead at that point. And it's like, well, Chad, let's break this down for you. I don't like math either, but that's a whole year, and we're already past that, and we've only been doing this fucking shit for like 3 or 4 months. So Chad, math, go back, bro. Like, it hasn't been a year yet. Let's do it, you know? Or, you know, you get a Brian on there, and Brian's like, man, that shit's just the flu. I had that back in January, and it ain't nothing. You get a little cough or whatever, and it's like, you didn't have COVID, Chad. That's cool. Stop telling people that you did. Put on your fucking face mask. And then, the flu kills more people than this is ever going to do. Also, again, we hadn't hit that point of the pandemic yet, right? And also, it hasn't been a fucking year. So if you have 12,000 to 60,000 people die a year, and we're already at 60,000 people dead in 3 or 4 months, math. math, Brian, math, Chad. Like it's cool. You can extrapolate and you can do it. And I fucking hate math. I was terrible at math, but it took so many math classes in my 20-year-old degree, Margie, that I did physics, I did calculus, I did it all. I did biostatistics, and I hate math. And I can do, these are simple things. We can do this, right? And does anybody else always notice that it's always the people from your past that are like this? Like high school fucking people, or some dude you ran into at a bar one time, or you saw his fucking shitty band play or something like that, and he's doing the thing. It's always that guy. Some guy that looks like maybe he showed up with a Holy Billabong shirt and a half-tan and a busted flip-flop at a Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville or whatever the fuck, you know. It's always that guy that knows all this fucking great math and statistics that he read on Fox News or whatever. Then we get down to masks, which I can just say, holy shit, y'all. Like, the mask thing I knew from day one was going to be the way we were going, right? Because you got this airborne respiratory virus. It's not going to go. You put it in front of your face. You don't give it to nobody else. You just keep it right here to yourself, right? Not projecting and stuff like that. But, oh, my God, Susan. Well, the COVID molecule is 12 microns, 0.12 microns, right? And then the mask, they don't like do the micron. They're like bigger, and the virus will just shoot right through that. Masks don't do nothing. I ain't wearing it. Fuck y'all. Susan, do you know what a micron is? No? Do you know anything about viruses, Susan? Because they don't just like fly out of your body with their virus wings. They have to get on like water droplets, which are way bigger than a micron because you can see them. And it doesn't work that way, so the mask does help. But, you know, here we are, right? Or my favorite, this is my favorite. I can't breathe in the mask. I just can't do it, and I can't do it, and it's whatever. And it's like, okay, I don't like the mask either, but it's called a panic attack or something. You need therapy for this because they're fine. People that go to respiratory therapy that have problems with their lungs wear masks all the time, and they have trouble breathing. So the mask isn't the thing, right? And oh God, what's my favorite? It's like they do this whole thing where they can't breathe, and it's probably some woman who's on like an evangelical porno site with the name of like, you know, Great Gag Mama 23 or something like that. But going to Starbucks with her mask on is gonna like hold her back, you know. And these were the people, and this is what eroded my belief in what I used to do as an entertainer. I was like, wow, here I am like doing my service, you know. You watch those movies where like the zombie apocalypse is happening, and they always drop you in the middle of fucking movie. You have no idea how you got there, and everybody's wearing masks because it was always a pandemic. Yeah, I don't know if you checked that shit out on the zombie movies. It's always a pandemic, right? And they just killed everybody. And Chad and Brian and Susan, they were all first to go in those movies, so they're no longer left, right? But it's always these people that are first to die. And always those people go, man, I wonder how they got into that pandemic. And then you're literally like, this is all you have to do to like not be in the pandemic and stay home and do the right things. But they don't, right? They're just so self-righteous. Well, that vaccine has a microchip in it. Roger, did you just tweet that? You did. Yeah, I did. I fucking microchips and vaccines, and it's got the 5G and the cell phone tower. I'm like, you did tweet that from your cell phone, Roger, right? You did tweet that from your cell phone. Yeah, but I just don't want it in me. I don't want them tracking me or anything like that or nothing like that. Roger, how far is the Wendy's from here? Hold on. It's like 10 miles. You go down here and you make a right. Fuck it, whatever. I did work on the vaccines, both Moderna and Pfizer. Pfizer actually called me, Margie, with my 20-year-old degree, and they called me and they said, hey, I know you work with all the big leading vaccine researchers. Can you give me the best ones? Because we got a vaccine and it's fucking awesome. And I'm like, they didn't say that because they're professional. I'm not professional. I can say that in hindsight. But I've done a lot of vaccine research in my 20 years, even though my degree is 20 years old. And normally vaccines only have like 60, 70% efficacy. That's like a good fucking vaccine. That's your measles, mumps, rubella, your influenza, shit like that. These motherfuckers got new technology. They're doing some cool shit with the mRNA to like stimulate your body in a very organic, natural way to help you fight this virus. Is it going to stop it? No, but it's going to be pretty fucking good, and it's going to be super stellar, and new ones come out every day. Well, it's too damn fast. Well, I'll tell you, I've been doing research. I design programs. 10% of drugs make it to market from the beginning, right? Here we are with now 2, coming up on 3 vaccines. 40 of them started in January. 40. Guess what? The math works out, Chad. You just got to do it, right? It's not faster. There's a lot of them that are on the floor because they didn't make the cut. They didn't make the cut. That's what I do. I help these things make the cut. We put 3,000 people on each trial of 30,000 people. So we did 10% of the overall patients. And these are brave people that just were tired of all this stuff, and they did the thing that was so unknown, and it's astronomically awesome, and I'm so proud to have been a part of it. And I think back to Arthur C. Clarke. He had this quote. He was like, "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." And I was like, wow, this stuff that we're doing is like magic. Like it's so amazing. And I think about that now in hindsight, 2020, and my Facebook wars and friend wars, really, like family member wars. I think we've all had those, right? I would say in hindsight, closest out is don't get your news from memes. I mean, they have misspellings in them. You probably shouldn't trust the information, full stop. I don't know. It's cool. Science should never be politicized. It made me so angry to see it so politicized, and to see stuff that were health innovations like masks and stuff being like, well, that's weakness, and making it all a party thing. And it fucking made me so angry, and I still want to strangle people. And science doesn't give a shit about your emotions or your feelings. It's going to do the thing. We just want to know. That's the information. I don't care how many times you want to spell a word wrong. It's spelled one right way, and that's it. Full stop. There's just no way around it, right? Science is like that. And the more we know, the better we get, the stronger we get. And on that note, neither the fucking viruses don't give a shit. As a matter of fact, they don't want you to wear a mask. They're equal opportunity infectors. You could be a baby, a mustachioed accordion player. I don't care. It doesn't care where it lives. It'll you. Do your best to present it. Do your best to like keep it away from other people. Keep it to yourself. And I guess on the final note, you know, like in 2020, with not doing the things that I would normally be doing, like magic and performing and entertaining and all this stuff, you know, I've tried to find those times where you can hear the fucking birds and there's not cars going everywhere. And I've taken up running and coffee with my girlfriend in the morning and cooking. I have never fucking cooked before. Now I'm like marinating shit and fucking doing all kind of crazy shit. So I guess to end this whole thing, you know, I've lost some things. We've all lost some things. We've lost some people, and we've lost some time, and things we just can't get back. And if you promise to find your magic, then that gives me enough hope to try to find mine again. And I'm Michael Casey. Donate the food, not bomb.
Thank you so much, Michael, and thank you to all of our storytellers. Can we just have one round of applause for you out there are hearing all of this? And thank you, all of you watching, so much for joining us tonight. We'll be back here tomorrow night at 8 o'clock with more stories in Hindsight 2020. Thank you very much. Have a good night.